In December 1972, Hanoi entered the longest nights of the Vietnam War. By then, the conflict had stretched on for years, and the Paris peace talks seemed close to an agreement. Close, but not settled. In Washington, political pressure was mounting to end American involvement and bring prisoners of war home. In Hanoi, leaders believed they could outlast any final surge of force. Between diplomacy and battlefield reality, a decision was made. Apply overwhelming air power to shape the negotiations. What followed would become one of the most intense aerial campaigns of the Cold War, remembered in Vietnam as Hanoi, 12 Days and Nights. On the night of December 18, 1972, Operation Linebacker 2 began. For 12 days, U.S. aircraft struck targets in and around Hanoi and Haiphong, with the campaign centered on the B-52 Stratofortress, strategic bombers built to deliver massive payloads over long distances. They flew with fighter escorts and electronic warfare support designed to confuse radar and suppress air defenses. American planners described the targets as militarily significant, transportation nodes, storage sites, air defense-related facilities, and infrastructure tied to the war effort. Yet modern bombing rarely stays within clean lines on a map. In a dense city, where rail yards and industrial sites sit near neighborhoods, the distance between military objective and civilian tragedy can be measured in seconds and meters. Hanoi was more than a capital. It was a symbol, political, cultural, and psychological. And symbols are tested in war. North Vietnam's air defense network had been hardened over time. Soviet-supplied SA-2 surface-to-air missiles, anti-aircraft guns, early warning radar, command centers, and interceptor aircraft. The United States expected technology, altitude, and massed formations to break resistance. North Vietnam expected discipline, adaptation, and experience to blunt the attack. The struggle would be fought not only in the sky, but in cramped operations rooms, where each radar return could decide whether an entire crew lived or died. In the early nights, many B-52 routes and tactics showed patterns, and patterns can be studied. North Vietnamese crews faced a brutal challenge. The B-52s were protected by heavy jamming, designed to blur radar screens and make missile guidance unreliable. But defenders learned to read through the noise, adjusting tracking methods, choosing firing windows, and coordinating missiles and guns to exploit brief openings. Above the city, electronic interference, flares, and the deep mechanical roar of engines merged into an industrial storm, cold, heavy, and relentless. As the campaign continued, both sides paid a price and changed their approach. U.S. forces altered timing, formations, altitudes, and flight paths, while increasing efforts to suppress air defenses. North Vietnamese units dispersed, moved launch sites, refined coordination between radar and missile batteries, and sought every crack in the electronic fog. Some nights, the sky over Hanoi seemed stitched with intersecting lines of fire. Other nights, the ground shook under repeated detonations. In December, looking from a Vietnamese perspective, it was a moment when Hanoi stood under bombardment and did not collapse. A declaration that a capital and a national will could survive even when the sky was contested. And for ordinary people, it remained something more intimate than strategy. The memory of fear, loss, and a stubborn, quiet persistence that history books struggle to measure. Part 1 of this documentary ends here, at the crossroads of war and negotiation, between the thunder of B-52 engines and the footsteps in underground shelters. Because Hanoi, 12 Days and Nights, was not only an air battle. It was the moment modern warfare pressed directly against everyday life, night after night, forcing a simple, unforgiving question. How do you keep living when the sky above you no longer feels like yours?